My name is Aynaz Anni Cyrus, and I was born and raised in the Islamic Republic of Iran. You might know it as Iran. By show of hand, how many of you are actually familiar with the country? Don't be shy, don't be shy. Okay. Iran is the neighbor of Iraq. I'm sure you all know that country. Most of the time when you hear about my motherland, you hear Iran. But it's very important to always say Islamic Republic of Iran. The reason for that is Iran was not always an Islamic country. In 1979, there was a revolution. Ayatollah Khomeini came along and hijacked the revolution, took power in Iran, and turned it into Islamic Republic of Iran, which now officially is the name of the country. Before the revolution, Iran was known as Mini America in Middle East. If you look up Iran before 1979, you will see that all the pictures will show that we were Mini America in Middle East. However, the revolution happened, and our constitution, which was a mirror image of American Constitution minus the Second Amendment, was completely gone, and a new constitution came up. On the top of the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Iran, it says, the Constitution of this country is taken from Quran, words of Allah, Sunnah, life of Muhammad the Prophet, and Hadith, the stories told by those who lived in time of Muhammad. So, everything in the Constitution, everything, laws, rules, civil codes, penal codes, come from Sharia, which is the combination of those three I just named. Within 90 days after Khomeini took over, women became second-class citizen in the country. By law, hijab started being mandatory for everyone, and they basically lost every right they had, including if they wanted to have a job, they wanted to go to school, they wanted to buy a property, they wanted to get married, or they wanted to get divorced. If they wanted to get a driver license, or if they wanted to get a passport and leave the country, they would have to have a written authorization from their male guardian. Lucky me, I was born after the revolution, so I was born into the Islamic country. Then to top that, I was also born in a family where my father was a sheikh, a step higher than imam, and my mother was a Quran teacher. So I pretty much was raised a strictly Muslim, at home, at a school, on the streets, everywhere. When I was getting ready to go to school, at age 7, when they handed me my uniform, it had a hijab, a white piece of headscarf. And I asked my mother that I was under the impression that I don't have to wear the hijab until I'm 9 years old. And she said, well, yes, that is true, and it is not mandatory for you to wear it yet, but you need to prepare yourself, you need to master it, and you need to learn how to wear it. So when you get to age 9, you're all good. And you don't have to wear it on the street, but you do have to wear it at school. Okay, put it on. First day of school, my father took me to school. On the way there, the first thing I noticed was that boys are going to school, but they're wearing whatever they want. So I asked my father, Dad, why am I wearing a hijab and they're not? My answer was a punch to the face. I asked the second question, why are you punching me? He looked me in the eye and said, you'll never question Allah. Okay. Fast forward to when I was 9 years old. I got an invitation to take to my parents. I did it from school. I did it, and they said, yay, there's an event coming up, and we gotta go, and it's a ceremony. It's called Requirement Day, and we need to get ready for it. Okay, what do we do? Well, first you need to master your prayer, and you need to master it, you need to learn it in Arabic. A question came to my mind at that age, and it was the fact that, wait a minute, Allah is supposedly my creator, But he expects me to be bilingual, but he's not himself. So I have to learn the Arabic so he would understand what I'm saying. That was the first red flag for me. Mastered the prayer. Then I had to master the prayer to call to prayer. I did that. And then they showed me my gorgeous wardrobe. They handed me a burqa. Are you all familiar with burqa? It was color white because it was a day of celebration. They put me in a burqa, put a black headband on top with a giant red rose or some sort of flower, and we went. I walked in, and the room is filled with 9-year-old girls. Some of them I knew because they were my classmates or from my school, some of them I didn't know. And for the record, same day, every single city in the country had the same ceremony going on for their 9-year-old girls. An imam came on the stage and started citing Quran and talking about Muhammad and Islam and Sharia and all that good stuff. And he went on saying, starting today, all of you 9-year-old girls in this room under Sharia are officially an adult woman. You will be responsible for your actions. You will pay consequences. You will follow Muhammad. You will die or kill in the name of Allah. Oh, and if your male guardian decides it's time for you to get married, you will do so. I have never tried to tell anyone how I felt because so many emotions were running through me. But the strongest one was anger. I was pissed off. I'm like, wait. So until now, I'm just a kid. The only thing I have to worry about is my grades, my school, classmates, friends, dolls, and like that, I'm an adult woman. I could possibly be a wife. I could possibly become a mother. After that, they told us to get up and repeat after the imam. He started saying the shahada, which is basically the testimony you give to officially become a Muslim. And technically, I've been called an ex-Muslim, but in reality, I'm not an ex-Muslim because I was too pissed off to repeat after the imam. So I didn't say the shahada. So as an adult, I didn't become a Muslim. But in Islamic Republic of Iran, when you're born, they stamp you a Muslim and you don't have a choice. After that, considering the fact that I was an adult woman and I was responsible for my own actions, I managed to get myself in a lot of trouble. Until I reached the age of 14, I was arrested over 12 times. And every time I was arrested, I was put in prison or detention center. And just a note, because I was an adult, there is no juvie system in Iran. You go to prison where real-life adult criminal women are being held. So I shared my cell with them. I managed to get lashed over 100 times. And I was raped, I don't know how many times, lost count. And just so you know the crimes I committed, I was arrested once because I was wearing nail polish. Now, why is that a crime? If you're wearing a nail polish, that is a proof that you're not doing your prayers. Because as a Muslim, when you do your prayer, you have to do the prayer wash up. And you can't have anything blocking water from touching the areas that you're washing. Hands are one of those areas. If you have nail polish, the water isn't touching your nail. Therefore, you're not doing your prayer. I was arrested because accidentally, completely accidentally, my hair was showing from back of my hijab. I was arrested because I went to a party when boys and girls were in the same room. And everybody at that party, including myself, we earned ourselves 35 lashes. Except the host, he actually earned himself 75 because he was a promoter. I also got arrested once because with a good friend of mine, classmate, we were walking home and we decided to whisper this song we liked. We got carried away and we started singing loud. We got arrested. And they took us to detention center. We were both 11. They had to hold us at detention center until morning where they could send us to the court to see what's going to happen. And somehow, while we were there, they find out my classmate, my friend, is not a Muslim, but rather she was a Baha'i. That was the night that I was forced to watch my 11-year-old friend be sodomized all night for being a filthy non-Muslim. I don't know what happened to her. She did not come back to school. And we were sent to two different courts, so I hope she stayed alive. Another time, I decided to sit in the front seat of a cab because the back seat was full. As the back passengers were getting off, I didn't bother to move and go sit in the back. We got pulled over by morality police. Here's the thing, and by the way, whatever I tell you, please do not take my word for it. Every information I'm giving you is available online, thanks to technology today. As soon as you're pulled over by morality police in Islamic Republic of Iran, and it's a couple, a man and a woman, the first question is, what's your relationship? I said, nothing, I'm a passenger. The driver said, no, we have a relationship. They took us in. In the morning when I went to court, I kept on telling the truth. I was just a passenger. And the judge asked me if I can bring someone else to testify to my testimony. And I said, well, no, we were alone in the car. He said, well, technically, because under Sharia, you are half of a man, your testimony counts as half of his testimony, so I'm going to have to take his word for it. You're sentenced to 75 lashes. I'm not going to bore you with more of my stories and criminal acts, but you get the picture. When I was close to my 14, my father, being the sheikh, devoted Muslim, just had it. I was bringing way too much attention to our family and I was too much of a troublemaker. So he figured it's time for me to be somebody else's problem. One day he told me I am going to marry that guy. I'm not kidding, literally. He looked me and pointed at the guy, that guy. I tried to cry my way out of it, beg my way out of it, even fight my way out of it. It did not work. So I became, back then I thought I became his wife. Later on I learned it's called the child bride. The man who bought me, yes, he purchased me. He paid $50, American dollars, and opium for about a month of usage for my father. He kind of sort of had a habit of looking at me as a punching bag. So he had me for over a year, and every day if he wasn't beating me, he was raping me. If he wasn't raping me, he was beating me, or sometimes he was doing both. I went to my father and I asked him to get me a divorce because my father, being my legal guardian, had the power to do it. He looked at me and said, well, I know you. You're not the type to bite your tongue and obey your husband. So he has no choice but to beat you. He sent me back. A little later, one day when he was done beating me, he left and I figured, wait, if I can somehow get myself to court and go into a courtroom and talk to a judge, looking the way I look right now, he might just feel sorry for me and do something. So let's do it. I walked into a courtroom with a dislocated shoulder, bloody lip, and a bruised face, eye area. And I went to the judge and said, Your Honor, you have got to save me because this man will kill me sooner or later. He was looking down at his papers. Very calmly he looked up with a smile and said, well, young lady, maybe if you start obeying your husband, he wouldn't have to beat you. Now go home and make him happy. That was the moment when I realized I'm a hopeless, helpless teenager. that no one in my country, in my home, it was called home for me. No one cares and nobody's going to save me. One way or another, he's going to find a way to kill me. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to even know I existed or what happened to me. Thankfully, I was blessed to have a grandmother who was against everything that was going on, not just with me, the entire country. She was raised the time of King before the revolution, so she had a very clear vision that there's a better life. There's a time and there are people who respect women, and they respect a 9-year-old girl as a little girl and not a woman. So she was against it all. She managed to hire a smuggler to get me out of the country, and I was smuggled to Turkey, where I became a legal immigrant under United Nations, went through proper channels, waited close to 3 years until I was legally approved and accepted to America. I came in as a refugee, and I came in to have a better life. I came in to enjoy freedom that America offers. And the proudest moment of all of my speeches is when I can inform you, starting 2010, I am officially a very proud American citizen. Aside the fact that I love saying this because it is really, it makes me feel so good. I think it was the best achievement of my life ever. Aside the fact that it makes me feel good and it makes me feel proud, I also mention this because I want to make sure that you all know I don't do what I do for paperwork. I don't do what I do to get my citizenship. No, I do what I do because of what I went through. Now, I was a lucky one. I was blessed. God had a plan for me. So I survived and I came here. But remember, every single day, there's a little Anni Cyrus in one of the Islamic countries who's being sold to marriage, who's being lashed for doing what teenagers do. To be specific, please do look it up. Based on reports by Registered Office of Islamic Republic of Iran between 2013 and 2014, they reported it, not me, there were over 178,000 brides registered under age of 15. And over 941,000 registered brides were between 15 and 18. They're reporting it themselves. And this is the country which, by the way, we made a deal with. Now, everyone in this room heard my story, and you can all say, you poor thing. No one deserves to go through what you did. Man or woman, girl or boy. And we're sorry and we're happy you made it here, and good for you. You're free now. But this has nothing to do with Islam. You have the right to think that, and you have the right to say that. So, let's get technical from here on out. If you bear with me. Let's go over what happened to me and see why do I think it has everything to do with Islam. So I was called an adult woman at age 9. Not me. Every girl in Islamic countries and Islamic families is considered an adult woman at age 9. And just to make sure, again, you can look it up yourself, but I will provide information here just to make sure that you know it wasn't some family tradition or cultural thing or our school wanted to do it. If you look up Civil Code of Islamic Republic of Iran, Book 10, Chapter 1, Article 1210 says, no one, when reaching the age of majority, can be treated as under disability in respect of insanity or immaturity, unless his or her immaturity and insanity is proved. Note 1. The age of majority for boys is 15 and for girls is 9. Civil Code of the country. And the same thing is repeated in every other Islamic country. Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, look them up. They're all available online. At age 9, a girl is a woman. Simple as that. Now, why is that? If you read the Quran, nowhere in Quran does Allah said what age a girl or a boy will be an adult. To be fair, it's not in the Quran. No, it isn't. However, it is in Quran 91 times in 91 verses. The most famous one, I believe, is chapter 33, verse 21, where it says, Muhammad the Prophet is the perfect example of a man, and you shall follow his footsteps. 91 times in Quran, it is mentioned that the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, is a perfect example of a man. Whatever he did, you do. What did Muhammad do? Any of you familiar with Aisha? Raise of hand. Okay, let's quickly go over it. Prophet Muhammad had 11 wives at the same time. His favorite wife was named Aisha. Aisha was 6 years old when Muhammad married her, and she was 9 years old when he consummated the marriage. And now, again, don't take my word for it. If you read Sahih al-Bukhari, which is the only approved hadith book by all Islamic leaders, Islamic scholars, and it is taught at Islamic schools and in mosques. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, book 62, hadith 88, where Aisha herself narrated the hadith saying she was 6 years old in the backyard playing when Muhammad came asking her father to marry her. Not my words, Aisha herself. Based on that, in every Islamic country, a girl at age 9 is officially a woman. Been there, done that. Now, moving forward. When I was arrested for sitting in front of a cab, the judge said he will take the man's word over mine. Why did he do that? Because in Quran, chapter 4, verse 11, Allah says, your girl is worth half of your son. And again, please don't take my word for it. You can read it yourself. There are, I believe, over 65 or 66 different English translations of Quran available, printed or online. And a lot of time you hear from Muslims saying that if you don't speak Arabic, you don't understand the Quran. And I would have to agree with them right there, because I read a lot of different English versions. And the best you can find, it varies somewhere between sugar-coated all the way to kind of really dip into maple syrup. Those are the best versions you can find. But still within that, you get the point. Where on chapter 4, verse 11, Allah says, your boy or your girl is worth half of your boy. When I went to court trying to get a divorce, the judge basically told me that if I start obeying my husband, he doesn't have to beat me. It wasn't because the judge was just some crazy guy who enjoyed looking at me beat up. No, because he was following the Quran. Chapter 4, verse 34. Men are in charge of women. It's a long verse. I give you the ending, and I'm not cherry picking it. It says, if you think you do not need to see, you do not need to wait until it happens. If you think your wife is she's planning to disobey you, warn her first, separate your bed, then beat her. But if she comes back obeying, then seek no further harm. My question is, what if she doesn't come back obeying? Keep on beating? I guess. But yeah, that judge was just following the Quran. My favorite chapter of Quran, by the way, is chapter 4. I will give you a lot of verses out of chapter 4. Reason, it's called The Woman. 176 verses. Allah took the time to send a specific chapter on how to treat your woman, how to look at a woman, and what a woman is under Islam. So how many of you actually read the Quran here? Anyone? Even a page of Quran. Okay, that's a little better. I always suggest, please do read the Quran. Because when you read the Quran, you don't even need me to come here and talk to you. You get the picture yourself. It's pretty easy to put it together. In whatever version, whatever translation you read, it's the same. No one has changed the Quran into a scary version. They have changed it into more sugar-coated version in English, but you get the picture of it. Take the time and read chapter 4. Because when you're done with that, you will sit there thinking, what? How can anyone be okay with treating their daughters, sisters, mother, or wives this way? Now let's go to where my father sold me to marriage. There has been a lot of conversation going on that child bride is a cultural thing in Middle East. Okay, the first answer or question is, why is it that only cultural part of Middle East that does child bride is the Islamic countries? How come the non-Islamic countries don't have child bride? But I guess that could be argued. So let's go back to Quran again. Chapter 4, verse 3. I will actually read this one because I don't want to mistranslate anything. Chapter 4, verse 3 says, if you fear that you will not deal fairly with orphan girls, you may marry whichever other woman seem good to you. 2, 3, or 4. If you fear that you cannot be just to them, then marry only one, or you are sex slaves. That is more likely to make you avoid bias. 2 things here. First of all, yes, it is in Quran ordered by Allah that it is alright for a Muslim man to have up to 4 permanent wives. Did you all hear that on this verse? Perfect. Now the next part, almost positive you all noticed the accent. So English is not my first language, but I'm almost sure, and I checked with some people who speak English as their mother tongue, an orphan girl is an underage girl who has lost her parents, correct? So we established the fact that we're talking about an orphan girl, which is an underage girl. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and explain this verse for you because I misunderstand Islam a lot. I let Aisha, the favorite wife of Muhammad, explain it to you. Again, if you open Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, book 62, hadith 2, Yursa, who was Aisha's nephew, went to Aisha and said, Aisha, what does Allah mean by chapter 4, verse 3? Aisha came back and said, oh my nephew, this verse has been revealed in connection with an orphan girl under the guardianship of her guardian, who is attracted to her by her wealth and beauty and intends to marry her with a meh, which is a marriage money, less than what other women of her standard deserve. So the guardian has been forbidden to marry her unless he do justice to her and give her the full marriage money. Did you all follow me here? I'm gonna simplify this. So Aisha told Yursa, chapter 4, verse 3 came to Muhammad when a guardian was attracted to the little girl, the underage girl, the orphan girl, by her beauty or wealth and wanted to marry her. That on its own, I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen. But let's go forward. But the guardian was planning to pay less for her, so he cannot marry her. It is alright, however, for the guardian to marry that little orphan girl under his guardianship if he's willing to pay the full marriage money. Not my words. I did not translate this, Aisha did. And I didn't write the Quran. Based on that single verse, and don't get me wrong, there are other verses in Quran that will confirm that child bride is part of Islam, approved and sanctioned by Allah. But that one by itself, this was the verse my father opened to me when I asked him why. Why can you do this to me? He opened the Quran and showed me chapter 4, verse 3. said he's willing to pay the price, I can sell you. Because the argument on this verse isn't about how old she is, it's about who's paying how much. Please do tell me a woman is not a property under Islam. Because if there's money involved, it is a property. I was a property. I was sold. And then, again, we have the argument how Islam is hijacked. Islamic countries are misunderstanding Quran, and they are just a bunch of cruel people who are making up laws as they go and make people suffer. So we went over the Quranic verse and then the explanation on the hadith on the verse. Let's quickly go over the Civil Code of Islamic Republic of Iran, Book 7, Chapter 2, Article 1041. Marriage before the age of majority is prohibited. So before 9, you can't marry off your girl. Note, marriage before puberty by the permission of the guardian and on condition of taking into consideration the ward's interest is proper. If you ask me, not only they didn't make it evil, they actually kind of mellowed it down. You know, before 9, don't do it. In Quran, there is no minimum age. In Islamic countries, at least they made age 9, somehow, somewhere, so a girl has 9 years to breathe. If they were about to follow Quran word by word, oh boy. I told you I was arrested because my hair was showing from my hijab, correct? You hear a lot, and I mean a lot, that hijab is not mandatory in Islam. It's a choice. And yes, it is. I will not dispute that. It is a choice. A lot of people will tell you that hijab is not about covering up. It's about modesty. Okay, let's see. If you actually open chapter 33, verse 59, it says, Prophet, O Muhammad, tell your wives, your daughters, and women of the believing woman to make their outer garment hang low over them, so as they be recognized and not be insulted. So yes, it is a choice. You have a choice. You wear the hijab, or you don't wear the hijab and be insulted. Here are your choices. So in reality, yes, it is a choice, but you're basically choosing between bad and worse. Again, read for yourself. Chapter 33, verse 59 says, tell the Muslim woman to wear the hijab so they be known and not be insulted. Then we move forward to chapter 24, verse 31, where it explains it has nothing to do with modesty, it has everything to do with covering up. Because on that verse, it specifically says, tell the Muslim woman to wear their headscarf down to their chests. My hijab was actually like that. It would go right there. The word used is headscarf. And it's very known in Saudi Arabia, headscarf has always been there because of the sandstorms. The word specifically says, tell the Muslim woman or believing woman to wear their headscarf down to their chests. Quran. It's not the hadith, it's not the sunnah, it's not somebody said something, it's not the Islamic regimes making it up. The Quran itself says, wear the hijab. What is a hijab? Head a scarf down to your chest, or if you don't wear it, there's a possibility you will be insulted. In Quran, if you read it, 51% of it, 51%, not 50%, not 48%, and I'm pretty sure when it's 51%, it makes the majority of it. So it's safe for me to say the majority of Quran is about how to deal with non-believers. I understand it goes around Islam is the religion of peace. I would love to know, how do we describe a religion as peaceful when the holy book of the religion contains 51% of how to deal with non-believers? And here are the ways you deal with a non-believer. Give him a chance to convert. If not, slay them wherever you find. So 51% of the Holy Quran talks about killing or converting. And for some reason, everybody's willing to stand there and say it's a religion of peace. In Quran, it allows you, it teaches you to sell your little girl for the fair amount of money. And we're willing to even call it a religion. As a woman who lived it, see, I didn't hear some stories, I didn't read some books. I didn't go to university here in America and study Islam. No, I was born into it. Every time I turned my head, every time I asked why, they brought up a verse of Quran. I was arrested, put in prison, raped, lashed, sold to marriage, turned into a sex slave, broken into pieces, shattered. Thanks to America, I was able to build myself back up. But I am being called today an Islamophobe. Correct me if I'm wrong, a phobia is an irrational fear, isn't it? After everything that has happened to me, I don't know how they even have the nerve to tell me my fear is irrational. You see, I was raised by a Quran teacher, I was raised by a sheikh, I was raised in an Islamic country. And after that, even when I freed myself, I kept on studying it because something just wouldn't click. I kept reading the book. I kept studying Muhammad. I kept reading the hadith. I kept reading the Reliance of the Traveler. Are you familiar with Reliance of the Traveler? If you're not, it is a little pricey, but I strongly suggest get a group of friends, chip in, buy one, and just, pass it around and read the book. It's very easy to read. Reliance of the Traveler is the Islamic book that is, again, like the Hadith al-Bukhari. It is taught at Islamic schools. It is approved by all muftis and sheikhs. It basically tells you what you are supposed to do as a Muslim. It explains the verses of Quran. It explains why Muhammad did what Muhammad did. I kept studying all of this, and the more I studied, the more I realized this cannot be a religion. The best I can go with, it's an ideology. The Quran can't even make a single decision. On one verse, if a woman commits adultery, she should be killed. On another verse, should be lashed 100 times. In Quran, a Christian and a Jew can pay the jizya, protection money, and become a second-class citizen and live life. On another verse, a Jew and a Christian are enemy of Allah. There are so many contradictions in this book. I'm like, why is it that nobody's asking the question? Why is it no practicing Muslim is standing and saying, wait, why do we see so many different decisions, so many different circumstances, so many different scenarios in our book? Until I came across a couple of verses where it says, you are not allowed to touch a word of Quran. You question Allah, you will be punished by death. The punishment for leaving Islam, you know what that is? It's death. Read Reliance of the Traveler. Read Hadith. Go to Islamic countries. Hey, look at me. I have a fatwa issued on me because I left Islam. I should be killed. So, anybody who wants to call it a religion, I'm fine with that. But as a person who lived it, as a person who literally dedicated her life to just figure out why did they do this to me, and why are they doing it to other people, it is not a religion, it's an ideology. It dictates every step of your life. It tells you what to do, and if you don't do it, you either end up dead, or you burn in hell, or you're not Allah's favorite. Now, as I said at the very beginning, I have no problem with Muslim people. I don't. Because I believe problem is Islam, not Muslims. Problem is Sharia. It's a toolbox right there. But there are many out there who are more than happy to use that toolbox to make our life living hell, or worse than that, to end it for us. This might sound like I'm trying to scare you. No. I'm just trying to protect the freedom I worked so hard to earn. My freedom wasn't handed to me. I had to wait, I had to work. I had to literally, by the time I came to America, I was 18. So 18 years of my life was gone until I could earn my freedom. And I will protect it. Now, why do I need to protect my freedom? Because nothing of Sharia is compatible with our Constitution. Our freedom comes from our Constitution, isn't it? Now, if Sharia isn't compatible with our Constitution, therefore our freedom is in danger. Yes, I have said it, I will keep on saying it. As long as we're not willing to face the fact that Sharia cannot coexist with our Constitution, we are going to be in trouble. I understand the whole fact of it's not going to happen on my watch, but guess what? It happened to my motherland. Iran was Persia at some point. We have over 2,700 years of history. You look up Persia, our history was filled with art, music, nothing of killing. Well, yeah, there were wars, but inside country, they wouldn't hang you because you committed adultery. They wouldn't hang you because you weren't practicing Muslim. Yes, in Iran, if you're not a Muslim, they will kill you. The number is available. They've been doing it and they continue doing it. In every single Islamic country, if you steal anything, do you know what's your punishment? Yep. They're gonna chop off your body. Now, here's the biggest problem. I understand, some people are like, oh, they can't coexist, but we don't have to be rude. Okay, I don't need to be rude. I don't mean to be rude, but here's the problem. Until every breathing human is a Mohammedan, meaning a Muslim, the day of peace will not arrive upon Muslims. I'm sure you know where I'm going with that. Even though I still say we need to go beyond borders. Every single girl who's being sold in Islamic countries, every single girl who's being mutilated under Sharia, every woman who's being killed, every girl who's being killed in name of honor killings, we need to stand up for them. But I would somehow understand if you all said, hey, listen, their country, their culture, their problem. I would understand that. But at the moment, the problem is right here. Let's go over it and, let's unleash my hate preaching for a minute by raise of hand. How many of you are familiar with Aisha Hassan? Amina and Sarah? Jessica McDowd. I'm not going to read all the names. The names I'm giving you. The first name was a girl back in 2009 who was beheaded by her father in name of honor killing because she was too westernized. Here in America. Amina and Sarah were sisters back in 2008. Their father shot them, killed them. They were too Americanized. The list goes on and on and on. There are so many names. We don't have the time, and I don't really have the heart to keep a straight face and name them one by one. But in average, based on research, every year, over 2,400 on-air killings are taking place in America. Look me in the eye and say Sharia isn't here. Those were Americans who were killed. Nobody has the right to take somebody else's life in name of Allah or religion. That does not work. Not with our Constitution, at least. Let's put our humanity aside for a minute. Did any of you hear about the clinic that was shut down in Minnesota about 5 months ago? If not, just Google it. Clinic shut down in Minnesota. The doctor was performing female genital mutilation right here in America. It is here, and it's not going anywhere. I'm not telling you all of this because I had a couple of bad experiences with my daddy and my husband. No. I'm telling you this because I am terrified of a day that I will have to leave the life I did before. I know too much to keep quiet. I suffered enough. To this day, my organization, Live Up to Freedom, does actual real-life rescue cases, meaning we go in and we save child brides from Islamic countries. We go in and save women who are to be killed for accusations. No proof, accusation. In Islam, in order to prove adultery, all you need are 4 male witnesses. Any of you heard of the stoning of Soraya M? If you have not, go on YouTube, look it up, watch the movie. Soraya was the very first stoning case in Iran after the revolution. She was stoned to death. Her husband accused her. He brought 4 of his buddies and they testified. And next morning she was stoned to death. And a month later, one of the friends came out saying, he wanted to get another wife. She wasn't going to approve it. And to this day, 8 women in Islamic Republic of Iran are waiting to be stoned. As I'm standing right here in front of you, I have a stoning on my head. Because when I escaped, my so-called husband's family went to the court and got a judgment. I committed adultery. I left my husband. For love of God, I was 15 years old. To this day, I can never go back to my motherland. If I do, I will be stoned to death. It's kind of hard to sit and know about all of this and still think for a second that there's a possibility that either we can reform Islam or we can coexist with Sharia. We can't do that because Sharia cannot coexist with anything. Go and look at 1400 years of history of Islam. Wherever it goes, it takes over. As Prophet Muhammad said, divide and conquer. Have you noticed how divided our country is right now? We have never been so divided. And if you pay attention, one of the biggest subjects that divided our country is Sharia. In this country, last I checked, we still have our First Amendment, right? Every time I go to any city, any place, and I want to stand there and tell my story and preach my hate and propaganda, even though I have the right to do it, but I always have to have lovely, brave men to stand by, because I have 10 fatwas on me for doing what I do. I disrespected Muhammad, they want me dead. I left Islam, they want me dead. I said Allah is bipolar because he can't make up his mind on Quran, they want me dead. I talk bad about Islamic Republic of Iran, they want me dead. And just so you know, 7 out of 10 were issued inside America. 7 of my bounties were issued in America. So, forgive me, as I'm not gonna stand here and say, hey, we're all good, let's get along. No. If I don't have the right to stand here and speak my mind, even though the Constitution gives me that right, if they're gonna try to silence me by killing me, right there again, I will rest my case. As peaceful as the religion is, if I come out and say what I say, I should be killed. Now again, are they all following these bounties and orders? No. But at the door, we are going to place a bowl of M&Ms for you. About 60 M&Ms are in there. Only 5 of them are poisonous. Please go ahead and help yourself. Sharia is a foreign law. Sharia, a lot of people say Sharia law. Correct word is Sharia. In Arabic, Sharia translated to English is Islamic laws. Right there. Islamic laws. Based on our constitution, there are no rooms for foreign laws. Why are we bending over on this one? Why? Again, let's put Islam aside and Muslims aside. Let's talk Sharia. Sharia cannot operate in this country because no foreign laws can operate in this country. Sharia is superior to all law of the land. Read Real Lives of the Traveler and the Hadith. As simple as that. A foreign law is being operated in this country and we're all good with it. We shouldn't be. Yes, my ultimate goal is to ban Sharia. Why? Because a foreign law cannot exist in this country. Simple as that. But the problem is, if you don't follow Sharia as a Muslim, then you're not considered a Muslim. And that's where conflict starts. And I will repeat for the 3rd time. This has nothing to do with Muslims. It has everything to do with Islam. There is no reforming it. There is no changing it. And the reason you can't reform it, as I said, in Quran itself says you cannot touch the words of Allah. And worse than that, you can't disrespect Muhammad in any shape or form. You cannot. Are any of you familiar with Shirin Qudusi? She's a practicing Muslim who's trying to reform Islam. She's got bounties on her head. Because she basically said, one aspect of being able to reform Islam is to face the fact that Prophet Muhammad marrying Aisha needs to be removed. We need to admit that that was an inhuman act. Fatwas started coming in. Disrespected the Prophet. You can't, how do you reform? Yeah, like take the Prophet out and replace it with a new Prophet. You can't do that. And you can't disrespect him either because you're going to end up having bounties on you until they find you and kill you. So there is no reforming it. There is no coexisting because, as I said, they have a system of laws. It dictates what to do, how to do, when to do, with whom to do it. And if they don't follow, then there's a problem. So I guess it comes to the choice. There is a choice. When I came to this country, as I said, I came to this country because of the freedom it would offer me. Let's not mention the fact that I don't really have it right now, but we're working on that. When I came here, the first thing I did was I started learning the language. I did my best. Then I started learning the culture. I started becoming an American. I still hold on to some of my, tradition and culture of Persia. I still eat Persian food. I speak Farsi. I listen to Iranian music. But my daily life is American style. So the choice is anyone who's willing to come in, respect our laws, our constitution, and our culture, I'll be the first one to open the door. But if they're coming because they want to take away our freedom and change this country into yet another Islamic country, I promise you, I will fight that until my dying breath. Because and here's why. You all heard my story. You all felt my pain. America saved me, right? If it wasn't for America, because Europe is gone, pretty much Canada's gone, the only reason I'm still standing with some freedom is because of America. She saved me. And she's saving a lot of people every day. In the history of America, millions and millions of people were saved. It's my turn to pay back. It's my turn to stand up and fight for America. And please forgive me for being bossy. It is every single one of your duties to stand up and fight for America. Because when it happens, and what I mean is when Islamization is completed, you won't pay the price. Your daughters and your granddaughters will pay the price. When the revolution happened, I wasn't even born yet, but I paid the price. My grandmother, my grandfather, everybody else's grandmother and father just sat at home thinking, I mean it. I asked my grandmother, she's like, we kept saying, they're a bunch of angry people, they're gonna go home, they're gonna get tired, until it happened. They kept thinking, it's not gonna happen. They didn't even dream of it, and it happened. It happened. And millions of little girls started paying the price, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. So, I don't hate anyone. I don't. I'm actually a very loving person, considering what I've been through. But I do stand up to anything that is going to go against Human Rights Declaration. Before what we do is who we are, before who we are is what we are, and we are all human. With that being said, God bless you and God bless America.